Thank you for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali. I am Attorney Zulu Ali with the Justice Watch crew, Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, and Dr. Akil Bashir. This week, like we do every week, we'll be talking about critical and important legal issues affecting our communities. Our topic today is a call to action, religious institutions, and their impact on criminal justice. Our guest today is Imam El-Amin and Pastor Frank Hernandez. Imam El-Amin has been a member of the Muslim American community associated with the leadership of Imam Warith Deen Muhammad since 1975. In 1980, he was elected the resident Imam of Muhammad's Mosque in Riverside, California. In 1987, he traveled to Saudi Arabia, where he studied Quranic Arabic at the Institute of Arabic Language at Imam Muhammad Ibn Saud University in the capital city of Riyadh. While in Arabia, he performed the Hajj, Islamic holy pilgrimage in Mecca, and later visited many of the religious and historical sites in the sacred city of Medina, as well as other areas. In 1991, upon his return to the United States, Imam El-Amin served as the first Muslim chaplain hired by the state of California Department of Mental Health. In 1999, Imam El-Amin was part of a delegation headed by Imam Warith Deen Muhammad, who was invited by the folklore community and the Vatican to visit Rome, Italy. There he participated in a 3-day Interfaith World Conference, Muslim Friends of the Folklore, and was able to tour religious, cultural, and historical sites of Rome and Florence. The delegation was later invited to the Vatican, where Imam Warith Deen Muhammad met Pope John Paul II, and in his presence spoke to an audience of over 100,000 people. In 2002, he received the Ambassador for Peace Award from the Interreligious and International Federation for World Peace for his work in bridge building among diverse religious communities and cultures. In 2005, Imam El-Amin headed a delegation of 10 to Japan, the first of series of goodwill tours designed to introduce Muslims of African American descent to world cultures and also to share their experiences with the world. In 2007, he served as president of the Muslim American Chaplains Association and currently serves as convener of the American Muslim Community Endorsement Agency. In 2011, he was selected to serve as a permanent member of SACIR, the State Advisory Committee for Institutional Religion, designed to advise the governor on religious affairs with regards to state institutions and the local community. He continues to serve in that capacity today. And Pastor Frank Hernandez was born and raised in Corona, California, and is married with 4 children and 7 grandchildren. At the age of 12, he joined the gang. Shortly thereafter, he got arrested and continued to live his teenage life in and out of juvenile hall. He ended up spending all of his high school years in juvenile hall, boys' homes, and Twin Pines, a juvenile detention center in San Jacinto Mountains. At 17 and a half, he was arrested. He was released from juvie, and he met his wife of 30 years and ended up going to prison in 2004. Halfway through his term, he encountered the Lord through a prison ministry that came to the prison. When he was released, he kept his focus on serving the Lord. He got a job in 2007 working as a drafter, where he became a manager of an engineering department, and currently he's a safety and fleet manager for the same company, and he was able to accomplish that with no formal education. And in 2010, he and his wife were ordained as ministers at a church in Riverside called Good News Church. Then in 2005, they were commissioned and sent to start their current church, Kingdom Living, also here in Riverside. And it targets those in gangs and drugs in our communities, as well as anywhere they can be effective. Last year, he went to Africa and will be going back in July for missions. He's also starting to complete his first book, and he's looking to be released at the end of this year. So for both of our guests, I want to thank each of you for joining us today. One of the things I want to begin by is talking about, one of the things that is kind of like a common denominator, at least from my perspective, as well as my staff here, Bilal, who actually spends a lot of time dealing with youth, as well as Dr. Akil Bashir, who actually spends a lot of time in the street dealing with people they got their pulse to the street, and myself, practicing and representing individuals who are both inside of the institutions as well as those who are facing incarceration. It's a common theme from our perspective, and we've talked about this, over the last month or so, and actually over the last few years, to be quite honest with you, about the significance of faith and how much that plays such an important role in all aspects of the criminal justice system, both being from the perspective of deterring crime as well as when someone is actually incarcerated, actually providing that faith that will actually, as far as the programs, I think there's no question that in these correctional institutions that the religious programs are actually the most effective programs, without any question, and tend to get quite a bit of support most of the time. However, we do know that there's also issues. And when we're talking about reentering into society, the importance that that faith-based that people have when they come out, giving you that moral barometer and giving you that for whatever, regardless of whatever religion you're speaking of, when you have individuals who are able to begin to start getting in touch with their faith and worshiping their creator, I believe that the recidivism rate is extremely high, keeping individuals from, going back, because the recidivism rate is so high in the United States. I mean, I think it's like 60%. They say that basically within the first few years of being released from prison, probably 60 to 65% of the individuals that are released go back. I mean, and it depends on what numbers you're looking at. However, I think that when you begin to start looking at individuals who get out and begin to start doing things from a positive perspective, then I think those who basically embrace some sort of faith-based program, regardless of what it is, and obviously the most known obviously is the Christian faith and the Islamic faith, Judaism, whatever it may be, when they begin to start embracing their creator, then it seems like that's how we begin to start seeing positive things go on in an individual's life. I mean, it gives you that moral compass, I guess, for the lack of a better word, of how they're going to live their lives. And the United States, obviously, I was looking at statistics. It said that the United States has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's incarcerated population. I mean, and that's very alarming, and when we can talk about doing all kinds of things to assist individuals from trying to, first of all, getting themselves into situations where they're dealing with the criminal justice system or going on the wrong path, or as well as what's happening as far as corrections is concerned, or whatever is going to happen when the individual is getting out and preventing that individual to come back. But based upon my conversations with individuals, based upon my beliefs, there's no question that when that individual begins to start getting in touch with their creator, then I definitely believe that it provides them with the foundation that they need to become a productive member of society. And we don't see our institutions enough going outside of the walls of their institutions and reaching out and trying to touch individuals in the street and providing programs. I mean, it's almost, they're preaching to the choir. But when you begin to start going out into the streets and you begin to start touching individuals, I know when you think, and I'm gonna go back and it's a controversial issue, but I'm going to talk on it because I think it's really, really important. During the days of the Nation of Islam, where you had a significant number of individuals who basically, and when I say the days, I'm talking about the older days during the time of El-Hajj Malik Shabazz and those earlier days when you had individuals, and even after that when you talk about Imam Worth Deen Muhammad, people don't understand how many of those individuals had criminal records. And even though that they had that criminal record, giving them that structure and that foundation allowed many of those individuals to come out and lead a productive life from the perspective that they're not out there committing any criminal acts. And the same thing happens for the Christian faith, for those who go in and actually, oftentimes you do have individuals that, as younger individuals, are baptized and they go through the church, but it's a formality. But then when they go in and they really touch and they really understand it, then it's the same thing. They go out there, and I know you're a testament to that, Pastor Frank, by someone who actually had the experience of actually being incarcerated, going on the wrong path, embracing your Creator, and it ended up being something obviously positive, so much so that you're able to go back in the community and you're helping other individuals not pursue that same path, or if they pursue that same path, not going back.
Correct.
Yeah. So I kind of want to get your impact a little bit about how you feel as far as what you're doing right now, as far as trying to touch individuals on the street and making sure that individuals who are keeping them, first of all, not getting into the system, but if they do get into the system, how do you help them, and how do you help make sure that they don't go back?
Well, first off, thank you for this opportunity to be here. But I think that it's so important to help those who are in that place of gangs and drugs and committing crime, understand that there is someone who loves them. Besides their mom and dad, and of course we know all those things, but there is our God is who loves them, so much so that in the Christian faith, He sent His Son to die for them, and we have to help them understand that. See, I have a little saying that says everyone knows what's wrong with them, but not too many people know what's right with them. And when we help them understand what's right with them, well, then they can start understanding that the call in their life is bigger than themselves. That there is something greater, that there is something bigger than them, and it helps them, and it kind of sets the course. The scriptures say that without vision the people perish, and it's helping them understand that there's a vision for their life, that they have purpose, they have destiny, and when they understand that, now they're more inclined to make right decisions versus making the wrong decisions. I deal with people who've been involved in gangs and drugs all the time, and it's instilling that understanding into them. Of course I'm going to be receptive, of course I'm going to be not receptive, but when they become receptive to it, you begin to see the changes in their life, and how they, instead of acting out how they used to act out, they begin to act out differently, because now they have a change of, their mind begins to change, and they begin to be receptive to Scripture. They begin to be receptive to an understanding that I don't have to act this way no more. There's something bigger than me. There's a call in my life, and I think when they understand that, it makes a big difference.
Right. And Imam El-Amin, how do you, from your perspective, how do you see our community reaching out, and how important is it?
Well, I think we must reach out, and it is of the utmost importance. I started out as a young man, 23 years old, and I joined the Nation of Islam, and I was a foot soldier. And you read some things on my bio that I'm doing now. I'm back and forth into Sacramento, sitting at the table with folks. But whatever I am, and whatever people say I am, that will never negate the fact that we have to roll up our sleeves, and we have to be willing to bring someone into our embrace and let them walk with us, and mentor them, and let them feel our love, and know that we are concerned about them. Before I came here today, I stopped to talk to a young man that I've been working with. He comes from a pretty horrific life. He was pretty rough background. And he's decided that he wants to be a Muslim now. So that's not going to be easy. One of the hardest things for young brothers and sisters is to pull the pants up. That's not the most important thing. That takes time. But we need to understand how difficult that is when the whole identity, everything is connected to that. And so I think we as leaders, we have to be willing to do that. Someone took me into their embrace. I had several mentors, and they walked with me. They let me be with them, and they taught me many things. And some of those people I have washed and shrouded their bodies and placed them in their graves. But were it not for them having that kind of concern and showing me that kind of love, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you at this table today.
Right.
I think that's where it begins.
Right.
Of course, it's much broader than that, but I think that's the root where the foundation lies.
Right.
To have that heart and that mindset for that.
Right. Yeah, I know. Speaking with both of you, I mean, it's just so realizing, at least from my perspective, that these individuals that for whatever reason are, I'm always the one that always believes that, my Creator's testing me. You know what I mean? And as an attorney, I always tell people that, the most valuable person is a witness. Right? A witness that didn't see anything don't mean anything, right?
That's right.
And so, when you have somebody, I always say that it's the same thing in life. When you have someone who goes through certain things in life, like yourself, Pastor Frank, and the things that, like you did, Imam Ron, you could tell you have a testimony.
Yes.
That you can give to people. And I think that God, there's no accidents, and He puts us through these tests and these trials, and then you can tell someone about your story, and then you can help somebody. You know what I mean? And I'm always amazed, how a person can come from the situation like Bilal, who had a life sentence basically.
Yeah.
And he's reformed, and through his faith he's reformed himself, and now he's actually mentoring other people. And now people can look at him and they can say, I can come from this to there, because everybody's struggling with something. That's what you always hear. Everybody's got a problem. Everybody's struggling. I'm dealing with this. I'm dealing with that. But, the great part about faith is that, our Creator doesn't make any mistakes. He is the one. Nothing happens unless he lets it happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, that's why a lot of times when you find people who embrace faith, who are very reluctant to go outside the doors for whatever political reasons, or they don't want to say certain things and they're scared of speaking out, then I'm always like, I'm not scared of nobody except my Creator. I believe my faith is more stronger. You can't do anything to me unless my Creator allows you to do it to me. And a lot of times people are so scared to speak out for these things that are going on, like the police brutality. Now, if you got police brutality going on, or you have issues going on, your faith should allow you to be able to go out in the streets and speak up for that, and not be scared of your position or your role in society. If somebody that my Creator, his creations, I'm going to speak up about it. If I'm going to see wrong, my faith allows me to do that. You know what I mean? I think I'm being tested. I think that when I see something wrong, that my Creator is testing me. When I speak out on it, I feel like that's an obligation, not for me necessarily, because obviously we do get scared, but I'm more scared of my Creator than I'm scared of of someone else. So I think that's what happens a lot of times when you have individuals who are actually involved, who are in our faith-based community. They're fearful of going out and speaking out in a way that sometimes scared them. I mean, like some of them, they belong to, like there's an hierarchy in certain religious organizations. And you say, hey, man, can you come and help me go out here? I want to talk about the situation that's happening to this individual in the street, or I want to start some sort of program. They say, well, let me go up and talk to, somebody in the hierarchy of the church or wherever, and they come back and say, I don't think they want me to speak on that right now. And that's kind of troubling to me.
Yeah, I think that, when you get that burden, when you get that, it's kind of like a woman when she's pregnant, she starts to get the starts from the baby kick, you know, and there's signals when it's time to go into labor. There's indicators, there's flags that a woman knows, hey, it's time, and it's almost like that what you're talking about. When someone gets that kicking, that nudge to do something, you know, and religion does that. You're absolutely correct. They hey, well, let me go talk to, you know, my pastor to make sure this is okay. I tell my people, no, if you're feeling a call to go do something, we're gonna stand behind you. We want to see God fulfill the call in your life, because it's not just about the pastor. It's not just about the leader. It's this is a when God created the earth, he said that in Genesis, he said it's not good that man should be alone. He meant for us to be in community. He meant for us to be surrounded and do things together. It's better when we do things together. You know, when we do it by ourselves, you know, we lose sight, we get misguided, we get sidetracked. But when we have those around us that are doing something together, we can accomplish more together than we can by ourselves.
Right, absolutely.
And when when somebody says, hey pastor, I want to go on the street, I want to go talk to, you know, this gang or these guys, this set of guys hang out in the corner, let's go. Right. Let's go talk to them. You know, and that's right. That's absolutely correct. You know, a lot of times I think in the religious mindsets, you know, we have all these hierarchies of sometimes it's good, but it also diminishes those who are getting the urge to do something that they feel God's calling them to do, and we end up shutting them down, and they lose. They get discouraged. They feel like, oh well, you know what? Then just forget it. You know, maybe I'm not of no value to go do something like that. And they lose sight of who God created them to be, and their gifting of the possibility of what could have happened if they would have went.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah, I think also that I'm encouraged with the position that, well, he's not that new anymore, the Pope has taken with regards to his parishioners, that, you know, he's saying, look, we've gotten too comfortable, and we need to come out from behind these walls and go out into the society, out into the alleys, the parkways, the walkways, etc., and embrace the people. This, in my opinion, or in my estimation, is the work of Christ Jesus. It's the work of Muhammad the Prophet, who said that if you see a wrong, you should first try to change it with your hands. And if you can't change it with your hands, you should speak out against it. And if you can't speak out against it, if you don't speak out against it, then you should at least hate it in your heart. So I think what has happened, I think the church, when I say the church, I'm talking about myself, okay? I'm the only Muslim in my family. And so when I go to the church, I'm comfortable. You know, I was going to talk to you about visiting your church. I think the church has failed in this sense, and even the mosque, because the mosque, we're like the new kids on the block. We haven't been too long here in this country, comparatively speaking. But I think the religious leadership has kind of set back and allowed corporate America and also Hollywood to define our lives for us, to define our cultural life, to tell us what we should eat, with whom we should associate, what we should wear, and all of these things. And that has always been the traditional role of the church. That's the role of the mosque. I mean, the mosque has always served as the center, the hub of the community with regards to the life and the traditions of Muhammad the Prophet. But now we don't see that happening, I think, mainly because of politics and money. Has distracted us from the work of Christ and the work of Muhammad.
Absolutely. And it's also, you know, has came to building that bridge between, you know, the Muslims and the Christians. You know what I mean? I know one time when I was in Nashville, I was asked to give a talk about religion. They asked a rabbi, they had a Christian minister, and the teacher, I I worked with her husband as a police officer, and he asked me to come and speak on Islam, right? And so we got to talking, and I spoke with this kid, and he said something to me was probably one of the most brilliant things that, I mean, he couldn't have been no more than like 7 or 8 years old. And he told me, he says, he said it's like the number after it was over, we got an opportunity to talk to the kids, and he said it's like the number 7, because we start talking about fighting over religion. And he says, like one kid says 5 plus 2 is 7. One kid says, his parents says 6 plus 1 is 7. And one kid says, 4 plus 3 is 7. And you're fighting, right? And you're fighting over the same thing. You know what I mean? And I can say it because like most of us, we came through, we reverted. So in other words, I grew up in the church, and I reverted to Islam, 20-something years ago. And so for me, I really know the similarities. I know how ridiculous the arguments and the arguments about who's right, who's wrong, they teach you this, they teach you that, regardless of who's saying it, is that in the final analysis, everybody wants the same thing. And it's the same God. There's not 3 different gods. There's only one God. Correct. You know what I mean? And the thing about it, regardless of what I think about an individual, and regardless of what that individual thinks about me, if we're really here to serve our Creator, we're going to get along, regardless, because the doctrines of what our Creator teaches us is going to make that happen if we're following His path. You know what I mean? We're not going to mistreat anyone. We're going to try to, and you're not going to proselytize someone by doing something bad, because God is not hate. You know what I mean? God is always love, always love, And so what happens is that when we're fighting with each other over things that are just, so trivial, we're fighting, it's the devil. You know what I mean? It's just an opportunity for the devil to get involved and to allow us to do crazy things and mistreat. I'm not mistreating anybody because, my God does not allow that to happen. Your God does not allow that to happen. Your God doesn't allow that to happen. We're going to get along. I mean, it absolutely makes any sense. So once we bridge that gap and realize that there's nothing for us to fight about, then we should work from an interfaith perspective to reach out in the community and bring people, embrace people, and show people love. Yes. You know what I mean? So instead of just showing people hate, you know what I mean? I mean, how are you going to say, I love my Creator and I'm following my Creator, and I'm hating you because you don't, maybe, you're a Christian, or I'm going to hate you because I think you're a Muslim, because I'm believing these things that people are saying. And even if they're saying, even if there could be even truth to it, I'm still going to love you anyway, because my God tells me to love you. You see what I mean? So, and that's what we need to teach people. That's why there's so much violence in our society, because it's not something that necessarily manifests itself in the streets. It manifests itself from our leaders. Our leaders are violent. That's the way they deal with everything. The same way that gangs deal with each other is the same way our government deals with people from time to time. You know what I mean? Because you just can't fight everybody. There has to be love, and you're fighting over things that are superficial, and it makes absolutely no sense. Correct. So, as far as what do you think that we can do to actually start reaching out to other institutions or other pastors and other imams to begin to start, number one, bridging the gap with each other, but going out in the community and kind of, making sure that we're looking not only for those within the criminal justice system, but those who need us.
I think probably what we should do, what I try to do, is form alliances with people that think like me, or I think like them. I can know when I'm in the presence of my twin spirit, spiritually speaking. Right. And build this edifice brick by brick. We're not going to get everybody to join in and respond to what needs to be done. I mean, we have to be wise enough to know that this is nothing but the devil that divides us. For example, in communist, I won't mention the country, but in one particular country, when communism was on the rise and it was trying to get its legs firm underneath it, it appealed to the people and said, look, what are these Christians doing for you? How have your life changed? And what are the Muslims doing for you? You know, religion is the opium of the people. Try a little bit of this, communism, and see how you like that. So the people bought into it. They woke up the next day and found that their bank accounts had been seized. So the enemy is not the Muslim, it's not the Christian, it's not the black, the white, it's not your wife, it's not your husband. The enemy, our enemies are lies, innuendo, distrust, suspicion, hatred, misinformation. You turn the TV on these days, you see the spirit and the language you see coming from Christians is nothing but pure hatred. How can you say you love God, but you hate people? It's impossible to love God and hate people. Those dynamics don't merge. You have to first love people. That proves your love for God. You see Muslims not following the spirit nor the letter, the tradition of the Quran, spewing out nothing but hatred, killing their own people, killing innocent people. This is what we're seeing in the world today. So there has to be someone that's willing to extend a hand and say, hey, you know, brother, let's go and walk together and let's tackle this problem. And together, united, we can have an effect on this. We can make changes, because through faith you can do anything, you know. Christ Jesus was the one that said your faith has saved you. So I think it's gonna have to happen like what we're doing right now. You know, you extend an invitation to me, naturally I'll come and do whatever I can. And I think that's how we do it. And we build it up.
Yeah, you know, whether you're Muslim, whether you're atheist, whether you're Christian, you know, Buddhist, Hindu, it doesn't matter what you identify yourself with. Love knows no boundaries. Love is not prejudice. Love is it's something we all look for. You know, when a young boy or girl's in high school, junior high school, you know, even early elementary, they like a boy, they like a girl, they're attracted to someone. Love knows no boundaries. It doesn't, you know, it's not prejudice. And I think if we start that at love, because we can all look at each other and see the difference in each other, but if we look and see what we have in common with each other, and that's love, is we can do more with that, and let that be the foundation, let that be the starting point, and then we can walk together. You know, instead of looking at what's different. Well, I don't like this about you, and I don't like that about you. But when we can come back to the place of love and say, hey, this is what I love about you. Or this is, you know, I love you because you were made in the image of God. You know, you were God's, you made in His likeness, in His image. Let's start there. You know, because we are all at that starting point, and then we can hold hands together and we can walk forward and accomplish more. And like I was talking about, accomplishing more together, because love has to be the foundation of that. And if not, you know, it's gonna get misguided. It's misguided if it's not starting at that point. You know.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean,
you know, when it comes to recidivism and faith and stuff like that, I can kind of directly relate to that. You know, considering the fact that, you know, back in 1983, I started going in and out of juvenile hall. I think from 1983 to 1986 was a 3-year span. From the time I got out from doing 9 months of juvenile camp, I was back in within a couple of months, up until like 1986, when I actually received a life sentence. And from 1986 to 1994, I encountered Imam El-Amin in 1994. I became one of his students. In fact, he put so much trust in me. When he would leave and not be present, I was to act in his capacity at that particular time in Chino State Prison. And it's been years, and then it's 24 years later, I'm sitting here at the table with him. And that just shows you, that speaks volumes in terms of what faith can actually do. You know, I didn't go back to jail. I didn't, you know, repeat, you know, from that point on. He was my second teacher in Islam. And I think that now when I look at, the impact that religion have and faith have on individuals. We tackle it inside. That's once a person has made the mistake and been there. But I think it's more critical for us to, be on the outside of these walls and tackling the issue on the outside of this wall, so they don't have to go to prison. Like you say, you can remember back in the days of, the Nation of Islam, when something happened in the community, they was on the forefront. They was out there. You've seen the movies about it, you hear the talk about it, and those who actually lived in there, like the doc over here, lived through those eras, and seen those things. And I think that whenever we have those critical issues that confront our community, whether it's black on black crime, brown on brown crime, police brutality, whatever it is, we don't see the church. We don't see people from the masjid out there on the forefront. This is what we need to see. These are the institutions that we need to see out there on the forefront in order for it to be, for people to actually to hear this call that we're saying oppression is oppression no matter where it's at in the world. Oppression is oppression. And as religious people, as people of faith, that if we can sit by and just allow this to happen, what that says about our faith, what that says about us as individuals. And you expressed about what the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about change it with your hand or change it with your mouth. But when he said you don't speak out against it, it is the weakest
of faith.
The weakest of faith. And who wants to sit on the weakest of faith? I surely don't. And so this opportunity for us to speak right here, to open up this dialogue, I think it opens it up to the people who are listening, saying that we need to, so when the next time that the next police brutality happen, we'll see our religious, institutions out there on the forefront of the line.
Right. That's absolutely right.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think the conversation has been outstanding. I'm going to go a little deeper, and I'm going to go into another direction. At the end of the day, wants show up in conversation, but expectations show up in behavior. And I think what has to happen, we've got to look at the rationale on why our religious institutions have not been effective or as effective as they can. When you look worldwide and understand predominantly the worldwide cultures are driven by religious norms, religious practices, and yet we see the diametric confrontations that we see worldwide, something is wrong with that input. Usually there's three fundamentals when we're talking about the lack of what a church or a religion institution engages when we're talking about criminal justice, etc. First, so many of these religious institutions are just that. They're institutions. The body of religion is just that. It's supposed to be a body of individuals who come together to propagate a given wisdom, a way of ideology, etc. We have allowed our institutions, our religious institutions, to be just that, institutions, which allow them to become part of the status quo. And this is the status quo that many of these religious institutions have created. Number two, the religious institutions, has been so eloquently said by both Bilal and both our two guests, is that they're out of touch with the people. They're not, what's driving what they do, their rationale at the end of the day, is what they hear, not what they see, is what they envision, but not what they touch. And if you don't know the normality of the people that you're dealing with, if you're not truly there to serve, and to serve you must understand, to understand you must engage. I've heard love talked about today numerous times, but very few of us give unconditional love. Because, see, I have to value you, I have to respect and honor you, and I have to appreciate you to love you. And we're not doing that. We don't see that type of love worldwide, but yet we see the religious institutions forming and just taking total control of the dynamics geographically and regionally, et cetera. And then third, most religious, and I hate to call them institutions, but that's what they are, they don't understand the ability to deal with the element of criminal justice, etc. When you stop and think, most of the prophets, peace be upon them all, came into fruition under unjust environments, under unjust normalities, under unjust individuals who did not like the concepts that they were bringing, and most of your prophets, alayhi salam, were condemned. We looked at most religions were born out of injustice, and yet here we are today as religious institutions afraid to go in and balance the unjust circumstances that are predominantly controlling the dynamics of the world. When you don't have the backbone, when you don't have the tenacity, when you don't have that courage to step up and balance the wrongs, and that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about inclusion. We're talking about people having the ability to feel their worth, their value, their greatness. And we're talking about creating equitable services locally, regionally, and internationally that allow people to value what they're supposed to bring to the table. Then we don't have real religious institutions leading anything. And we need to do a serious inflection. We need to look at the dynamic of the infrastructure that these entities are operating from and asking the question, are we truly meeting the needs of the people? When you look at the amount of poverty, when you look at the amount of person-to-person destruction, when you look at the amount of wars, when you look at the amount of just the lack of value of each other, something is wrong with the dynamics of the input that is going in that has to be changed. We will have brothers like these and individuals that will stand up and step up, but that can't be it can't be just an individuality. We've got to change the normality of how our institutions are operating. And I'll lastly say this. I think this is one of the biggest problems. We, the people, are allowing these institutions to define our realities through practices, through principles, through formalities, but not through the essence of the religion. And until we question those entities, until we make them redefine what their thinking process and what their methodologies are that are going to meet our needs, then we're going to be in this dynamic ongoingly and possibly indefinitely until we get the courage to say no more. The dynamic has to change.
If I may, excellent. If I may just add one little piece. You're so right. The religious leadership has to step up and redefine what is a man, what is a woman, what is life, what is the role of man, who are we, where we come from, why are we here, where these things have been defined, again I'll say, by Hollywood, corporate America, etc. We have to reassume that role and redefine these things according to and put them in the context in which God has placed them. And until we do that, we're going to still continue to have these young people coming up thinking that to be a man, you have to look a certain way, this way, the way the media tells me to look, or I have to behave a certain way. And that's a serious problem. That's a serious problem.
I mean, yeah, they're very much, the media is very much involved. They create the narrative, you know, and basically, and we kind of follow suit with allowing them to create the narrative as to how we address it. Even the issue sometimes, they create the narrative with regards to the issues that we actually, you know, address. And, you know, and now, of course, more than ever, and we talked about this almost every week, especially with our younger people, I mean, news and media is instant. It's in their ear immediately with our kids, with the social media and with the cell phones. I mean, it's so much in their ears nowadays that we're competing against it. You know what I mean? When we're talking about our parents and our churches and our institutions, whether you're talking about the masjid or whatever, we're competing with our children with this social media and all the stuff you're talking about, Imam, that these people are having access to. You know, it's difficult, you know, and I always say when I was a kid, once I went home, that was it. I didn't have no cell phones or you know, Facebook or email. I didn't have any of that. My all I had was my parents. Right. You know, but nowadays, I mean, it doesn't stop. Yeah. You know, I mean, you got little kids in the bed at night on their cell phones, you know, looking up things, and it's so much junk that's going in their head, and our institutions, it's more important now than ever that our religious leaders are out there on the ground trying to touch these people before they go on the right path. I mean, we have to do that. And again, I mean, I'm not here to proselytize one thing or another, but I mean, you know, it is what it is. I mean, we you know, nowadays, you know, it's not politically correct to talk about religion. It's not politically correct to talk about God. You know, they make it a bad thing now, you know, to even have the conversation. Correct. But, you know, it saved You know, I can tell you it saved my life. You know what I mean? And you know, it saved many people I know. It saved their life. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people who may have more money than I have. They may be in a better position than I have. You know, but they don't have the religious foundation, and they're lost. You know what I mean? I know people who got millions and millions and millions of dollars that, you know, they're away from killing themselves because they don't know what life is really about. You know what I mean? And if you don't have that foundation, and we see it with young people, they're always trying to find something. You know what I mean? They're trying to find what's going to make them happy. They go from one thing to another. If I get the job, I'm going to be happy. If I marry the right person, I'm going to be happy. If I got the right money, I'm going to be happy. If I got the right house, it never stops when you don't know really what life is all about. Because if you don't have, you know, faith and you don't have your Creator, it don't mean anything in a final analysis. You know what I mean? Because, you know, like they say in the military, I've never seen an atheist in a foxhole. When you're on that last breath, you know what I mean? Who are you thinking about? You know.
You know, I think it's important. You know, I know for me, is understanding that people are going to make mistakes. You know, we're going to make mistakes, but it's when they make that mistake that what I've learned is I can't change nobody. You know, I can't take the responsibility and try to change somebody because I can't. What I can do though is position them to encounter God, to position to encounter Jesus, so that when that happens, they will begin to make a change. You know, and that's one thing that I do when I encounter people in the streets. I'm not trying to change them. I'm trying to position them to encounter, so that they can be encountered by the love of God, and that will change a man. You know, for growing up, you know, especially, you know, without fathers, we have many children growing up without fathers, and I believe it starts there. You know, we have something inside of us that we want to be loved by our fathers, and when that doesn't happen, we grow up misguided, not understanding what love is about. We relate to God by how our Father has treated us. If we didn't grow up with it, we don't have the understanding of a father's love. And so for me, I think that we can come back to the basics. You know, you can't teach if you haven't been taught. You know, and I think if we start instilling that understanding to men, teenagers, you know, adult males, to get back to their children, to come back and to begin to love them. It's never too late. It's not too late to come back and start to loving their children again. You know, and start showing them, start helping them. You know, but going back to what I was saying is I've understood that, hey, I can't change anybody. I'm not in a position to change people. Or, you know, what I'm doing is I'm introducing them to Jesus, to God, so that they can make that change that they need. You know, and I'm just there to help them along the way, because people are going to make mistakes. And what happens, especially in the ghettos and in the barrios all across the nation, they're very passionate people. You know, in prison, you've seen a bunch of people that were very passionate about what they were doing. You know, you would walk the prison yard and you would hear guys talk about their war stories of what happened in you know, when they were out in the street, and they were very passionate about it. If we can turn that passion around so that there's no going back.
See, you know, one of the things, though, from the street perspective, and I'm talking about hardcore street, some of us have been there, I know you have, these brothers and sisters have become so marginalized that their reasons to drive and the reason to stay alive is not strong enough. And if that religion is not giving us and reinforcing the reason to live, the reason to assume the essence of my divinity in life, I'm not going to gravitate towards that religion, because so many other things have failed me, especially in marginalized communities where nothing is there for the individual. So we can't, at the end of the day, just drop a religion and say, follow this and you'll be loved, accepted, etc. If you don't give me the rationale of the reason to meet my needs, if I don't have that essence and that driver is not coming out of me, viva that religion, I am not going to stay with that religion. I am not going to embrace that religion. Matter of fact, I'm going to run away from that religion, because I'm going to feel that religion is going to pump me at the end of the day. So we've really got to understand that dynamic, especially on the streets today. Because we've got brothers all over being taught religion, and yet a week, a month, or two later, they're more destructive than they are before. So we just got to understand that. I agree with what you're saying, but we got to understand the whole complex, the whole holistic nature of really what's going on out there.
Well, I think it goes back to we're selling them a false bag of goods, so to speak, because we come at them, we tell them, hey, go to church, serve God, and your life's going to be great.
That's right.
And when push comes to shove, sometimes their life gets worse. And they're like, hey, wait a minute, I thought this thing was supposed to help me, and it's made my life worse. You know, and what happens is, you know, there's a portion of scripture that when Jesus was born, in scripture tells us that they started killing all the newborn babies from 2 years and younger, because they were trying to find out who it was. And I think that the devil tries to kill us in our infancy, in the beginning of your dreams, in the beginning of your walk with God. He tries to take you out in your infancy because you're defenseless. And he says, look, I'm going to attack you at this time because you're defenseless. And I think if we can understand, come behind them and reinforce that, hey, we're going to be here with you. We're not going to leave you. And that's the whole thing. When little boys are growing up in the streets, you know, and they're facing they get jumped in a gang because they felt they're by themselves. Hey, I need a gang to back me up. I can't get this by themselves, and the gang will be there for them. The gang will I mean, I know that the gang will back you up. They'll die for you.
Yes.
And in the same sense, will your brothers in Christ do that for you?
Yeah, you know, this is a subject matter, of course, that can go on and on and on. And you know, the thing about it is, I remember my mother once telling me, she says, you know, son, you just have to pray. You know, you guys got to pray about it. You got to pray about it. And, you know, and I used to sit back and I used to think about it. And I said, okay, yeah, I'll pray about it, right? But then I remember reading the scripture said that faith without works, you know, is nothing, you know? So where is the works? And the works is the application. You got to go out there and you have to put work in the streets. I remember, look, when I first accepted Islam and they said that, okay, you're not allowed to turn the other cheek. You know, I come from the hood. You know, I came from the deep part of the hood. You know, I didn't want to be no punk about nothing, you know, let alone, you know, once I got, you know, became a Muslim, you know, I didn't want to be a punk. So when they say I don't have to turn the other cheek, I was like, oh yeah, I'm with this, cause you know, so the thing about it is, even with this fight right now against oppression, that fight is still there. And I think for the people, that fight has to be there. Those works have to be there. Don't just sit at the house and just think you're going to pray and think it's going to be over with. You have to put the work in.
Teach.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, and most certainly, you know, like you said, we do not have the power to change, but we have the power to influence, because God has called us to be different. Yeah. And I feel like it's so important for, you know, all of us and all of you to be sitting here and be talking about issues that are important in our communities, and to, you know, do action, to be active and actually inform people that we have to take action. The time is now, in such, you know, crucial times, and how our culture is nowadays, that we have Kim Kardashian in the news, you know, going to the White House and lobbying the president on trying to pardon someone from prison. So it's a different culture. It's totally different, but, you know, it still stands. We are called to be different, to be change makers. So, you know, I encourage all of those of you listening to in the radio to, you know, tune in every Sunday, and to call 909-792-5222 if you ever want to be involved in the talk, and also to log into our Gmail, send us emails if you have any comments, concerns, justicewatchradio@gmail.com. Back to you, Mr. Ali.
All right, thank you. All right, again, man, I really enjoyed this topic, man. I really hope that we can continue and do a series on this topic, because I think it's really, really important. And I really appreciate both you, Imam El-Amin, for coming in, man. I'm blessed that you know, with your presence, as well as you, Pastor Frank, for coming in. And hopefully you guys will come back again and bless us with your presence. On behalf of myself, Attorney Zulu Ali, and the Justice Watch crew, Michael Clark, Rosa Nunez, and Dr. Akil Bashir. We'll see you next week, the same time, same place, same channel.